Welcome to today's episode of A Couple of Architects, a podcast by Ecoarch where we discuss all things design. Joining us today is David and Gys, both supervising architects at Ecoarch, to talk about how research can be used as a tool to future-proof design from our position as architects and from a client's perspective.
I'm Sarah Stubbs. I am co-founder and director of Ecoarch Studio. And today we have David, JP, and Gys to talk about master planning and Ecoarch's approach to research, which is super exciting. So I'm really keen to get into it.
Thanks, Sarah. And I think it's really important that you bring Gys and David in on this conversation because they've been heavily involved for, good 6 months now on research, urban design and master planning. And we've done a few schemes that I think they can add value and their experience behind it. And particularly with the project that you're involved in. So, so Gys, just introduce us. I think everyone's keen to see where the magic is in terms of urban design at Ecoarch.
Where's it coming from? Yeah, I'm Gys. I'm an architect at Ecoarch. I have a bit of a interesting background in terms of coming to architecture. My dad has always had some practical stuff at home, and he has a woodworking shop, and I always saw practical stuff that's being built. And I think that's a beautiful thing for me in architecture. That's something that you see something that you draw on the paper, and that's the beauty of architecture. At the end, sometimes this will be built, and there's a lot of responsibility for that. But also, it's a great experience being part of the process. So that's the exciting part of architecture for me, that it's something physical.
I'm David Carruthers-Smith. I don't have a father that does woodwork, but I always knew I wanted to be an architect or an inventor or something like that. So I knew what I was going to be doing from day one, and it's so nice to be doing that with a great bunch of people and doing some really interesting projects.
At Ecoarch, we have found ourselves sort of falling into this like little niche-y thing that's sort of happened over the past year, and that is research. And I think when we started this particular project that we're working on right now, which is a massive development, we didn't go into it thinking, we're going to become researchers, but essentially that's kind of what happened. And through this whole process, we've actually found that there's a little sort of somewhat gap in the market, because often what we found is that clients will come to us with a typology, with a site, with an idea, but nothing really beyond that in terms of like a formalized brief. And they come to us and they say, hey, we've got this, what can we do? And so we found ourselves sort of falling into this notion of going out there and figuring out what the client can do using research.
And I think the research component is so important, especially because we take the client on the journey of that research as well. So they feel confident in their land purchase and confident in the brief that we present to them. And I think I'll hand over to Gys firstly, because with Fumba, for example, like I know you guys went through quite extensive research to identify the scale, to identify the brief, making sure the client is confident in that.
Yeah. I think also just taking a sort of step backwards, we as an architect, we love the idea of challenges. And that challenges can be translated across many sort of sectors within the architecture field. So it can be programmatic challenges, but it can also be site-specific, can be technological. And I think part of our research, we're trying to sort of formulate this program that the client did not know what they actually wanted. And we do the research to inform that process and that program, and it makes it for a richer type of end product. And that complexity we use, exploring the complexity, but that makes the journey quite rich for us, but also for the client.
Yeah, you touched on an important thing there, and it's both JP and Gys, and it's that the journey that you start with the client, and essentially you begin to unearth answers together. You see where it leads you. You're not coming there and being very prescriptive about what should happen. it's a relationship and a journey together, and you find out new things. It's also great to learn. One of the most important kind of tools that you can have as a designer is that deep knowledge of the subject that you're looking for. And yeah, you research things, you use them on different projects as well. It might not lead you anywhere. You find you go down particular avenues, but that information is still very useful to you. So it's been such a great experience, learning, understanding different things, exploring different options, and trying out, testing different things. So I think it's hugely valuable for both the client and ourselves as a company, ACO. Yeah.
So what I found interesting about both, obviously the project that Gys was involved in terms of research compared to what David was involved in.
Yeah.
Yours was like very much like a master plan, urban design.
Yeah.
Many different components, convention centers and hotels and residential and waterfronts and everything under the sun, where yours was quite specific to, like, very recently a resort type, getting the scale of that right, making sure that the feasibility is right and the keys.
But then there's also the conference center side of things and the arena side, and trying to understand the new typology. So it's been quite specific lately, but it's been also, I think that entertainment hub side of things was an amazing exploration as to, I don't even know what we're doing here, and trying to research what they do on cruise liners for how do guests really get involved,
the operational side of things.
And understanding what certain resorts offer and what they might not offer, and what does the local industry provide, and what opportunities are there for guests to really immerse themselves in that experience. Because what we all like about traveling is experiencing something different to what we have. So it needs to be this blend of experiences that are familiar, but also very unique in this way. And so to try and work all these things out is really, really interesting, and just to kind of see where the market's going and how we can contribute to that.
It's like unboxing a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And you just pour everything on your dining room table.
Without a picture in front of you.
then you find the edge pieces first, and then you kind of get that. Then you got your set of rules, and then everything else you kind of find the missing pieces in between.
I think what Dave was also mentioning in terms of this experience and this journey, we talked about the client, but we also have the future user that are actually using the project. I think this journey is quite important. Through the process, you sort of start creating this, as we said, maybe these puzzle pieces, but it also forms maybe a bit of a narrative in the back of your mind. How are you going to tell the story to the prospective clients, but also the users, and how you piece these things together to create this golden thread that follows you through the project. And that thread you can then relate to different scales of the project. How do you actually detail something right at the end of the project, but also how do you provide an initial idea in the beginning of the project? And these things all come together. It's a journey that you also self-take when you explore that whole process.
I think you also massively future-proof the project by this element of research. So I think it's really important to understand that for us, this research is kind of has come before what we would normally call stage one, which is inception, which is when you start a project. So usually a client will come to us with like a very prescriptive brief, I want 3 bedrooms, blah, 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 this whole list of things. But when a client comes to you and says, I want a resort on this piece of land.
How many rooms?
They don't know how many rooms. What is the market for that many rooms? What is, what is the client, the clientele who are going to visit that resort going to want? And so we delve into that. We go and do that research, look at what's been developed before, what's been built, what currently people are using. And we put that all into like a massive document that becomes almost like a little mini dissertation that we can then hand over to the clients and be like, here is your development on paper in research. And this largely future-proofs this project as well, because it's all backed by like research and past precedents and all of that. And I think that element has become very, very helpful to our current clients who's we've worked on these projects with, because there's a lot that they've learned that they didn't even know that they wanted or was important to consider, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I like being a detective as well. I like looking at things and using my initiative and to try to actually work things out and understand things and draw information from everywhere. So it's actually really stimulating, when you're not just doing spreadsheets. But it's a very cool kind of thing to be involved in. Maybe research is not for everyone, but what's really interesting about like myself and Gys, we essentially driving the project, and we're starting with the research and we're driving the project through. Like the answers just seem to be there when you need them. They're just in your back pocket. So it's such a useful thing for people, designers, to do is it just comes to you. The knowledge flows.
Creates designs that like are not superficial, and I think that's super important.
Layer.
They layered, they rooted. There's also an answer for everything. So when the client says, "Why did you do this? Why is it designed like this? Why is that like that?" You've got, well, this is why.
Yeah.
I think as architects, we actually like this idea of the complex nature of the project. And we love to take on those types of projects because we don't know in the beginning when we start the project at assumption what will be the answer. And you actually need to expose yourself to the whole process and just say, okay,
understand the anxiety.
What it's going to be, and let's just go into this rabbit hole and see where it's leading.
Yeah. But
that's the exciting part.
Yeah, but there also needs to be some simplicity in that complexity, right? You want the end user to, it must be simple for them to use. It must be understandable. It must be good wayfinding.
Yeah.
And we use research, and we use current trends or future trends, and we research those and implement them into what we feel very educated and very well researched opinions is best for the client. And that starts with, like Sarah said, we presented with the site, blank site. Cool. What do you want? No, I want some hotel rooms. Fine. Then we ground ourselves, we create a narrative, like you said, and that narrative, that constant thread through our research, that way we always focused on that research, and we know we all speaking about the same thing, all have this same understanding, which I think is really cool to see that over the past year we've really generated our own methodology for research.
I think also taking that journey with the client, I think is a really important thing. Is you end up in a position where the designers, ACO, we understand the client's brief because we've been along that journey, and the client understands that brief. So you have people that are on the same page together. You don't run the risk of potentially some client coming to you, giving you a brief, and they know that we know what they're talking about, and we know that they know what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So, those, and then we also have an understanding of what the unknowns are to come.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really comfortable and important place to be. Just in terms of the client's confidence and your confidence.
Yes. So before we even start designing, we're all completely in agreement with what we're trying to achieve. And I think that's very valuable. And then from that, we've got this beautiful set of, like, we call them guiding principles. Sometimes I like to call it a recipe, because that's literally what you've created.
Methodology.
This methodology that now we can then create a design. And largely this often leads to like a master plan scheme. So our master plans are so grounded in, I like to say reality, but that is the truth. Like they real life, they're able to be translated into real life very easily. And we kind of work from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the place is important, the narrative is important, and how you respond to those constraints. And that's the challenges, and that's the exciting part that we love to explore.
Yeah, I hope we maintain this curiosity, because for me, like, it's really scary not knowing what you don't know. So, like, I want to find that answer out. I want to understand what I don't know. So then I know what I must research.
And you must know what you have to look at. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Use research. Yeah.
So thanks. Yeah, thanks guys for joining us. Really cool conversation.
Yeah.
And
we look forward to many more years of research.
Yeah.
Give me papers, give me precedent, and lock me in a room.
And don't be afraid of the rabbit hole. Just
go with it.
The anxiety levels will reduce.
Follow the rabbit down the hole.
Allow yourself to actually go into that rabbit hole, because I think that's a personal note for myself, that sometimes you don't want to go in there because you don't know where it's going. But
So next episode, Alice in Wonderland.
That's all for today. Thank you for listening to our podcast, A Couple of Architects by a Co-Arch Studio. To stay updated with our latest projects, podcasts, and news, please follow us on Instagram at @ACOARCH_studio. That is at ACOARCH_studio. Or sign up for our newsletter on our website at ecoarchstudio.com.